We have some housekeeping items to deal with right out of the gate. So we're going to start with the acceptance of some bills. So I am looking for a motion to approve a bill to the community advocate for $279.40 for January 29th, 2023 legal notices. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion to approve that bill.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. On to the next item on our agenda. This is to approve 4 different meeting minutes. They would be comprised of January 23rd, 2023, April 24th, 2023, June 26th, 2023, and September 25th, 2023. Any discussion?
I'd like to discuss this.
Yes.
So perhaps I'll direct my questions to Ms. O'Neill. I noticed that some of these minutes are from several months ago. I'm just wondering if it would be possible to put a plan into effect to address the backlog and then perhaps to be current going forward.
Sure. I'll talk with the group internally, town staff, and, make a plan and report back.
Yeah, that's
That
fine.
sounds good.
Or maybe,
Sounds good.
yeah, going forward, get us current minutes, and then we can do a backlog at some point. I know it's, there's a lot of minutes that need to be recorded, so, okay, well, thank you for that. Might I get a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. All right. We are going to open the hearing with our first 6:30 hearing. This is a continuation of a hearing from last meeting. This is to hear the appeal of 779 Hartford Turnpike. This is in the limited industrial zone. We have Michael Connors, 621 Main Street, Remodel Works, Shrewsbury, Mass. This is for 2 variances. Section 7B, Table 2, to allow for an addition to a pre-existing non-conforming building to be constructed 29 2/10 feet from the rear yard setback, where a 50 feet is required, and an easterly side yard setback of 32 feet, where a 50 foot is required. And we are also looking at a special permit to Section 4B for the westerly side yard setback at 28 feet 5 inches, where 50 feet is required. Welcome to the appellate. You could state your name for the record.
Michael Connors with Emily's Interiors, Remodel Works.
Welcome.
Joseph Cupsis, owner of Remodel Works and the owner of the property at 779 Hartford Turnpike.
So we were here last month to discuss the setback issues. We're seeking relief. And we reviewed everything, and the outstanding item that was kind of holding us up last month from getting the board to vote on it was the fire department had yet to comment on our application. They've since commented. We went through the planning board process as well, the administrative site plan review. And through that, I spoke with Deputy Chief Colby. He had asked a couple of questions, but we are in compliance based on that conversation, and he has since approved it. It has since come to our attention late last week. I've actually had multiple conversations with Ms. O'Neill over the past few days that there is a separate issue with the current use, and which is going to be the same proposed use of the building as a showroom space. And we have since applied to be on next month's meeting agenda to seek relief per, Section 4 of the bylaws for continuing an existing use. So we have applied for that. So tonight we are seeking relief for the variances and special permit that we applied for at last month's hearing.
Ms. O'Neill, can you fill us in on the section?
Yep.
4?
Section 4B, a continuance of existing use. We were trying to interpret just the parking narrative and the use within the limited industrial zoning district. And the question came up whether it was a retail showroom or a building materials showroom or sales room, I believe is the definition. And both have a percentage cap. So for the retail sales, it can not be no more than 15% of the area, and even with the building sales room, it's no more than 25% of the gross floor area, which they exceed because it is acting as the showroom.
Currently,
and-
if I may,
Correct.
it's
And-
100% showroom. And
And
we're
that's- yep.
introducing warehouse space, but we're adding space to the showroom and introducing warehouse space. So we're looking to continue the current use and introduce a new use that is allowed within the limited industrial.
All right, so,
So somewhere along the way, it just was not caught.
I see.
And that's just, we're kind of just rectifying that and moving forward. That's why it's the special permit, it's not a use variance, because it had been existing a kitchen sales showroom, to my understanding, when they bought the property.
Correct.
That's how they continued to use it, and here we are today.
That's
So,
correct.
so just to be clear, in front of us tonight are 2 variances and a special permit, and then you'll be back next month for.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Board members, Peter, questions, comments?
As we talked about last time, my main concern, I think, was the fire department issue, and it sounds like that's been cleared up as far as criteria for a variance. I think it's an unusually shaped lot. You've got some pretty serious slope, and I think probably maybe some ledge. I see that there's wetland, and you've got kind of a variety of things that.
Correct, and we've gotten conservation approval previously as well.
Right. So I think there are a few different things that are limiting your abilities to develop the lot, and I think that constitutes probably a hardship based on soil, topography, shape. So I'm all set.
Okay, Ann?
I agree with Peter. I think there is an articulated hardship there, so I don't have a problem with the plan.
Tim?
Certainly, yeah, I would agree with what the lot presents for them, that it would meet the criteria for the variance.
Okay, great. Dave?
I agree with everything that's already been said.
Okay. All right. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to be heard on this matter? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And might I get a motion, please?
Sure. I move to approve 2 variances under Section 7B, Table 2, to allow for an addition to a pre-existing non-conforming building to be constructed 29 2/10 feet from the rear yard setback where 50 feet is required, and an easterly side yard setback of 32 feet where 50 feet is required, and a special permit under Section 4B for the westerly side yard setback of 28 feet, or 28.5 feet where 50 feet is required, at 779 Hartford Turnpike, the Limited Industrial District.
Great. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thanks
See you
very
next
much.
month.
Yes, you.
Okay, next 6:30 hearing, this is to hear the appeal of Leonardo Silva of 38 Briarwood Lane, number 10, Marlborough, Mass, for a special permit to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 6, Table 1, to construct an in-law apartment upon property located at 56 Elm Street in the Residence B2 zoning district. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 32, Plot 291000. Welcome, could you state your name for the record, please?
Name is Jonathan Remkes of 56 Elm Street, the property owner.
Welcome, Mr. Remkes. If you could walk us through what you're planning on doing, please.
Essentially, building a walkway to a garage with an in-law apartment above it. And it would be for my father, sitting in the back right there.
Hi, Dad. Okay. All right. Ms. McAllister, can you fill us in on anything?
McAllister.
Oh, did I say that? I am so sorry.
Okay.
Ms. O'Neill?
No, no comments. There was a certified plot plan submitted, and it will be a breezeway, connected breezeway, so to the house, to the.
Pretty straightforward. Okay. Wonderful. Peter, questions?
No issues for me.
Ann?
If we could just talk a little bit about the 12.6-foot distance that would be in effect between the northerly property side and the building.
Yep.
Why it needs to be there, why the building can't be located someplace else.
Because the builder at that point with the slope down the driveway, I have a complete slope on that 12.6, and at that 12.6, it's a 10-foot clearance off the next property line. So they decided to have the 12.6 right there because that's the flat land, so it won't interfere with any flooding or anything like that.
Okay, thank you.
Tim?
There's a question for the chair. There's no square foot requirement or minimum for an in-law structure. Is that correct?
That's Ms.
That's
O'Neill.
Okay.
Yes.
And as he pointed out, he has 10 feet on the side, so, for this zone. So no, I don't have any concerns about it.
Okay, wonderful. Mr. Moore?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. As was said, it's within all the setbacks, so there's no issues there. Yeah, nothing else to add.
Right, I have nothing else to add, just to comment that we're seeing more of these coming forward, so I think we need to be prepared for that, and certainly understand, and commend you for building an addition for your dad.
Try and do the right thing, you know?
Good for you.
Yep.
Good for you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that wishes to be heard on this matter? Okay, can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing?
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve a special permit under Section 6, Table 1 to construct an in-law apartment at 56 Elm Street in a Residence B2 district.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have fun building that.
Absolutely.
Okay. Our next 6:30 hearing. This is to hear the appeal of Kathleen Shepherd of 160 Southbridge Street, Auburn, Mass., for a special permit to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, Section 6B, to construct a sunroom on the pre-existing non-conforming dwelling, 38.5 feet from the rear property line where a 50-foot setback is required, upon property located at 9 Boston Hill Circle in the Rural A zoning district. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 44, Plot 009006. Welcome. If you could state your name for the record, please.
Hi, my name's Kevin Keeler. I'm Chief Designer for Brady Built Sunrooms. Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of
Kevin.
the board. Appreciate it. I'm here to represent Emmanuel
Manuel Zoraco-Leferakis.
Welcome.
I'm one of the owners.
and his wife Anastasia, who is home with kids.
Okay.
All right, I'm here to present a unusual situation that I have not run into in 30-plus years in the construction business, so here we go. Manuel and Anastasia hired us to replace a section of their back deck with a 11-foot 7 by 18-foot 8 sunroom. The deck needed to be rebuilt and was not getting used because of the bugs and weather and a lot of other issues, their son and things like that. So they have a growing family and they needed the extra space for their young children. So we designed the room to take up a portion of the deck, and the original plan was to have the rest of the deck stay, replace the section of deck where the sunroom, replace the 11 7 by 18-foot 8 section of the deck with the sunroom, and then rebuild the decking and the railing on the existing deck, and that was it. We applied for the building permit in the beginning of June last year. We uploaded a plot plan along with the building permit application. We were informed shortly afterwards by the town that it wasn't showing the existing location of the house, existing location of the sunroom. Showed the house, but it wasn't specific where the sunroom actually was going, so we uploaded a new, a plot plan showing exactly the location of the existing sunroom and how far off the lot line it was. On June 14th of this year, the building permit was issued. It was R23-485. So we began construction of the room. If you're familiar with Brady Built Sunrooms, we build them in our factory under controlled circumstances. They're custom made, so they can't be used anywhere else. It's made specifically to fit on their house.
the room was completed in October. We started work at the house. The site prep contractor started the site preparation, which basically includes tearing apart the back of their house. During this process, it was discovered that the remaining part of the deck that was not covered by the sunroom was not in good enough shape to reuse. So we decided to change the plan. And so we decided that we were going to take the rest of the deck off. We designed a little small platform and a set of stairs going to the backyard. We updated the plot plan showing this, uploaded it into the system on November 28th, and informed the building inspection department of the change. Very shortly after that, we got a call from the town saying that they had missed the setback on the original plot plan and should not have issued the permit, and they wanted us to cease construction immediately. We contacted Chris from the planning board and Patty, and who were very helpful, very helpful. And it was decided that it would be a good idea to come before you and get a special permit under section 4-B of the zoning bylaws, expansion of a living space into a pre-existing non-conforming situation, setback. Our mistake on our part was my permitting department assumed that the rear yard setback was 30 feet because the house was 30 feet off of the lot line. And that's why they submitted that. We did not realize it was required a 50-foot setback. The current house is built 30.33 feet from the rear lot line, so we're not going to expand any further on the nonconformity or make it any worse. The room is on the back side of the house and can only be seen by one neighbor. There are no other houses behind the property. There's pictures in your package of that. They've spoken with the owner on both sides, who have submitted letters for both neighbors saying that they're 100% in favor of the project. We feel that the gable-style sunroom addition will be a beautiful addition to the property and have no adverse effects on the neighborhood, and we really hope that you will grant us a special permit so that we can continue the project.
Ms. O'Neill?
I think he summed it up pretty well.
Yeah.
So I have no further comments.
Okay. Questions? Peter?
I think for me, where the sunroom's going to occupy basically the same footprint as the deck, is that right?
Yes.
And there's a very significant distance between the back of the house and any abutting structure. Looks like it's a pretty serious wooded area back there. It's not visible from the street, and it doesn't make the nonconformity any worse. I don't see any reason to deny a special permit in that circumstance.
Thank you.
Ann?
I agree with Peter.
Tim?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I don't see any, I don't have any concerns about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Yeah, same here. The relief you're asking for is less than what you already have, and it's consistent with the neighborhood and with the neighbors, so, yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, I don't have any concerns, although it is a public hearing, so let's see if there's anyone would like to be heard on this matter. Okay, doesn't appear that there is. Can I close the public hearing, please?
I move to close the public hearing.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, can I get a motion, please?
I move to approve a special permit under section 4B to expand the living space of a single-family dwelling to convert it to, oh, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong one. I'll try that again. I move to approve a special permit, section 6B, to construct a sunroom on a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling 38 5/10 feet from the rear property line, where 50 feet is required, at 9 Boston Hill Circle, Rural A District.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Appreciate
go get cracking. That house needs to get sealed up before the
certainly
snow
does.
gets in.
They're very much.
I'm sure. You'll be there in the morning, I'm certain.
Probably.
Yes. All right, thank you. All right, next on the agenda, this is to hear the appeal of Richard Ricker, which is not Richard Ricker's appeal, but Richard Ricker will be representing the owners of the property located at 45 Lakeside Drive, and this is for a special permit to the Shrewsbury zoning bylaws, section 7(6)B, to expand the living space of a single-family dwelling to convert it to a two-family dwelling of a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling upon property located at 45 Lakeside Drive in the Residence B2 zoning district. The subject premise is described on the Shrewsbury Assessor's Tax Plate 17, Plot 045000. Welcome, state your name for the record, please.
Thank you for the chair, thank you to the chair. My name is Richard Ricker, and I've been in front of you before. I'm an attorney representing Donna Manis, who is seated to my right. Donna is the owner of this property for a little over 20 years now. This has been an existing two-family. We can trace it back at least until the early 70s. We went looking for voting records. Prior to that, had some difficulty locating those particular records at the town clerk's. But then when we were further reviewing this, I noted that a conversion from a one-family to a two-family in this district is allowed as right anyway. So that kind of went by the boards, and so that was kind of a red herring for us to get started on this little project. With respect to the appeal in front of you, it's to allow the alteration of a non-conforming property. The non-conformity of this property is the setback, as you can see from the plot plan. There is no exterior alteration, however, none whatsoever. This is all interior. The fact is that Donna went to get a building permit because she had a previous tenant that, as they were moving out, did substantial damage to the property. That led to the need to do renovations, and that led her to ask for a building permit. And that leads us here to come see you, because any alteration, as I understand it, I wasn't even aware of this, frankly, after doing this so many years. Any alteration, including interior alteration of a prior non-conforming structure, requires a special permit. I gotta tell you, I don't like it. I don't think it's right, but so be it. This is what we're dealing with. So that's really what we're here for, is a special permit for her to do some renovation work and also to alter the interior a little bit. She's adding one closet, expanding on the second floor. She's adding a closet and expanding the area where the washer and dryer go. Basically, those are the only real changes that she's dealing with here. So I think that's what we're here for, rather than a conversion to a two-family. It was requested when I did file this that I mentioned that it is a two-family. I would note that the building commissioner, did make a note, and maybe even in your file, that she noted that the town records show it as a single family. I'm not sure what records you're talking about, because the assessor's records and previous building permits that have been granted for this property noted that it was a two-family. But we don't even need to get into that, because, as I said, a conversion in this district to a two-family from a single is as of right. So that's it in a nutshell. Donna's husband, Michael, is seated behind us. We're here, obviously, to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Ms. O'Neill, anything to add?
Nope, I think Mr. Rich has got that pretty down well. And I think the note from the building commissioner was that the permit history on file for the building department was just that it was a single family, and, two families somewhere else potentially, but that was just what she noted.
I think it's important to note that it has been used as a two-family. Since she bought it in 2021. 2001. And it was we have a letter from someone that she bought that it was previous to that. We, as I say, we went back to the 1971 with records that we could locate, so.
Yeah, and that the plot plan submitted is an old one. It's, so it would just need a waiver.
So you're looking for a waiver or a certified plot plan?
Yeah.
Yes, we are, and the reason that I asked for that waiver is, I think we filed one from Kevin Jarvis. I think we filed it maybe shortly after the original filing, but we were asking for it because obviously, this is all interior renovations. So we thought, oh, someone's really, sorry. I should know better than that.
Okay.
These newfangled things.
Okay. Anything else to add?
No, that was the reason I requested that waiver, though, is because I would respectfully submit that I thought a plot plan was kind of crazy when you're dealing with interior renovations like this.
And we do have one that's dated presumably when you bought the house.
Yes, that's the mortgage inspection plan, yes.
Yeah, got it. Okay. Questions, comments before we open up to the public?
I would just say I'm fine with the waiver where it's all interior work, and where it is a conversion as of right in this district, I don't have an issue with that. I note on the plan, although I see that it's from 2001, that it looks like there's a pretty significant encroachment of the fence line, and I just note that ideally that would be removed. But as to the special permit, I don't think I have any objections.
Okay, thank you. Ann?
I agree with Peter.
Okay, Tim?
Question for the chair, is there a floor area ratio requirement for a two-family dwelling in Shrewsbury?
Gonna go to my brain trust. Is
Yes,
anything
there
else?
is for a new one.
For a new one?
For new.
Yes.
For new.
Yep.
Okay, so that,
That's typically been exercised when someone comes in and asks to build a new duplex.
so that would not apply in this case?
I would say not anyway, because any renovations in this particular unit were done over 10 years ago, and therefore would be not subject to building commissioner action. So by statute, they would be allowed.
Does Luis concur?
I think Ms. O'Neill might,
I think we're doing some research right now.
Oh, okay. No, I haven't done the math either on the property with the, the house plus the shed or whatever it is, divided by the lot size. I haven't done that.
Right.
Yeah, but if, I'm just.
I can tell you this.
Curious question.
I can tell you this, that any construction that is done without a building permit can be challenged for up to 10 years. With a building permit can be challenged for 6 years, according to the statute. This construction it dates substantially more like 30 years. So I'm confident that that's not an issue in this case.
Just raising the question.
Good question to raise.
If it's a requirement, and, I haven't done the math, is the requirement .30? Does the math play out? I don't know.
Right.
Other
And
than that, I have
I
no
think
issues.
frankly, the building inspector, if she felt that that was an issue, would certainly let us know.
That is true. All right, David?
I have nothing else to add.
Okay. All right, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody that wishes to be heard on this matter? All right. Can I get a motion to close the public hearing, please?
Move to close the public hearing?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's get a motion, and we do need to recall the waiver on that.
Right. Can I just loop that into the main motion, Louise? Is that all right? The waiver?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Oh, and did we miss a waiver on that?
Yeah, we did.
Whoops.
That's why I have it circled.
Yeah. All right. So I move to approve a special permit under section 4B to expand the living space of a single-family dwelling to convert it to a two-family dwelling of a pre-existing non-conforming dwelling, and to approve a waiver from the requirement for a certified plot plan at 45 Lakeside Drive in the Residence B2 district.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice to see
very much.
everybody.
You as well.
Point of order? So there were waivers for 9 Boston Hill Circle. We've already closed the hearing and voted. What do we do for that?
My fault. We amend?
We could just do a separate vote on those.
Yeah, right now.
I think we
Yeah.
can.
I think that works.
All right, there's a point of order. We overlooked some waivers for the previous hearing at 9 Boston Hill Circle, so we're going to just add some verbiage to our hearing.
It is, essentially, it's A through O that they would need to request relief from for that, the sunroom
A through O.
of the of the Article 3, Section 3 of the zoning rules and regulations.
Just for the record, roughly what are we waiving?
So let me go back to it.
So Article 3, Section 3, oh, plans of land.
Yeah, so the north arrow, names of existing and proposed streets, zoning district boundaries, names and addresses of direct abutters.
But all in relation to the certified plot plan.
Correct.
right? Okay.
So are they they're asking for 2 waivers then? Or does the certified plot plan get bundled into the A through O?
So they had a plan, but I think the plan didn't indicate all of the things that are required under section Article
Correct.
3.
I think it was the mortgage plan, so it was certified with those setbacks originally, but when they superimposed the red, like, hatch marks with the sunroom and the estimated distances, that isn't done by a certified land surveyor.
I see.
Right.
Okay.
So,
Okay,
kind of.
Article 3, Section 3.
yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I move to approve a waiver from subsections A through O under Article 3, Section 3 of the Rules and Regulations of the Zoning Board of Appeals with regard to the special permit issued this evening for 9 Boston Hill Circle in the Rural A District.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Thank you, and I apologize for that. All right.
That's all that ends well.
At least we caught it. All right. Next, public hearing. Excuse me for a minute while I get my... All right, this is a continuation from our December 19th, 2023 hearing. This is to hear the appeal, and I apologize, is this 83?
33.
33-69 Green Street. This is for 40B, Pulte Homes of New England LLC, located at 1900 West Park Drive, Suite 180, Westboro, Mass. This is a comprehensive permit, and this is to permit the construction of a 300-unit multifamily residential development. Welcome. If I could have y'all state your name for the record, please.
Good evening, Essex Petrie with Pulte Homes.
And good evening, Matthew Leidner with Civil Design Group.
Welcome.
Good evening, I'm Jeff Walsh with Graves Engineering, your engineer.
Great. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks again for having us at the meeting tonight. At the previous meeting, we ran through a presentation. It was an overview of the various different sections of the project and other elements that will be covered over a series of meetings over the next few months. The next step was for the peer review engineer to do a peer review of the site plan and the stormwater in particular. We met with the peer review engineer as well as members of the town last week. We received the peer review letter earlier today. My understanding is that the peer reviewer is going to discuss some of the contents of his letter. As we just got that letter today, we're not going to be able to address all of that tonight at tonight's meeting, but we certainly have had good conversations about the content, and we will be, putting together our response. So if it pleases the board, we could review additionally any site plan details or any of the details that were part of the stormwater design if desired, or if we wanted to turn it over to Mr. Walsh to go through his peer review. But we're happy to speak to any details that the board may have questions on or to present to specific to the site plan or stormwater.
It'd be my preference to hear peer review first. Do you guys agree?
Works
Is that
for me.
good?
Sure.
Okay. So,
All right.
without further ado,
Thank you. Again, for the record, my name is Jeff Walsh. I'm with Graves Engineering. We're out of Worcester.
peer review on behalf of the Zoning Board of Appeals for this project. I apologize for the letter getting to town offices Friday afternoon after town hall had closed. Little misunderstanding on the green light to get underway. So mid-January, we fully understood, okay, we should be at work. And nevertheless, we're able to get the letter out Friday, and I understand it got to the applicant's team today. If I could summarize the letter, there's a few pages, a lot of engineering discussion, not many comments. The comments we have are, essentially minor in nature. There's a few points, about 8 or so, that I'd like to point out to the board in just a moment. No fatal flaws in the plans with respect to engineering. I personally walked the site and did go around through the neighborhood and so forth, drove over Appaloosa Drive, drove down to the intersection of Brook Street and South Street, which is down gradient of the project, on the downhill side of the project. I came in from the Route 20 area. I grew up in the area. I'm very familiar with the neighborhood and the area nevertheless, but as part of a typical review like this, I make sure I visit the site. We went through town zoning bylaw for compliance. Granted, they can request waivers, but nevertheless, they've got to demonstrate there is a need for requesting those waivers. So we look for compliance and would be prepared to discuss any waiver requests with the board. We looked at the internal vehicle and pedestrian circulation, number of parking spaces. Again, that goes to zoning. Reviewed the drainage design, the stormwater management design. Technically, there's a difference. The drainage design is the collection system that captures the stormwater and conveys it to a point at which place it would be managed. Stormwater management is how they reduce peak rates of runoff, recharge groundwater, treat the water, and so forth. And we also gave comments with respect to general engineering, if we can't pigeonhole it to zoning bylaw, hydrology, stormwater management, and so forth. Again, no fatal flaws, very thoroughly thought out, very thoroughly engineered. But nevertheless, there's a few things I'd like to discuss with the board. And I'm just going to go in order, not from number one to the last comment, but the points I'd like to speak with the board about for just a moment or two. Starting with comment number 2 on page 1. They propose a mix of exterior surface parking spaces in interior at the garage or basement level parking spaces in each of the 6 buildings. Some of those parking spaces are assigned one in front of the other, so that you have to move one vehicle to get to the other vehicle. That's an operational issue that the facility operator would have to manage. I wasn't sure if this was going to be, quite frankly, I didn't review when I put the letter together, I haven't looked at one thing that I understand it is for sale versus rental ownership. But nevertheless, the point is, my opinion that management aside, that the 2 spaces should be to the same household. That, quite frankly, that's it. Pulte had a similar project in a different town with a similar parking scheme, and I thought those were rental units, and but nevertheless, I wanted to make sure that a rental situation would be different than a home ownership if they assign the parking spaces to home ownership. But again, the pair of spaces should be to the same household.
Mr. Walsh, just to be clear for folks listening in or watching at home, the issue is that they're tandem spaces the long way, basically. So if
One
they're-
behind the other,
So
that's
if they're
right.
assigned to 2 different households, the person who's behind might not be able to get out because they can't communicate.
Absolutely, yep.
Thank you.
And just a point of, there's a proof of concept with this at your Westboro project.
Yeah, this was one, although I just said that we weren't going to respond tonight, but this is an easy one, and the tandem spaces are deeded to the same unit. And just point of clarity, Pulte only does do home ownership, and so this is something that we see, it's a typical condition in all of our garden-style buildings, and tandem spaces are deeded to the same unit. So.
Great, there's your.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to number 6, I just want to make sure that there is adequate storage facility for the solid waste, trash. Each building in the basement level is shown to have a trash room, if you will, and exterior to the building, there is one area at the northern facility, and I believe one area at the southern facility labeled recycling. I just want to make sure there's adequate provision for solid waste storage, whether they separate the site recycling and the solid waste to 2 different locations or combine it all in one. It might have just been a way that the labeling was different, because one set of plans was architectural and one was civil. Moving on to number 12, I know they did soil testing to look at seasonal high groundwater and the suitability for soils for groundwater infiltration. I saw that evidence myself at the sites, but the information wasn't in the stormwater report I received. Their application materials, they did recognize in a narrative that they did soil testing, so I'll need to see those testing results and look at offset to groundwater. Moving on to number 13. Not sure if this is a problem or not. I suspect it probably isn't, but it should be something that's vetted out and possibly investigated a little bit more. Bummett Brook is an intermittent stream that enters the project on the upgradient side, in like the north or northwest corner, goes through the properties and discharges at the low end, cross through a culvert that crosses South Street, and then immediately down gradient of that crosses Brook Street. The culvert under South Street is what I'd say fairly new, maybe it's a reinforced concrete box structure, whereas the culvert under Brook Street was a series of 3 round reinforced concrete pipes. My understanding is, and I've personally seen that area flood in the past. The cause of the flooding, I had no idea. It was, 20-ish years ago, but nevertheless, it could have been clogged, it could have been something else. But that piqued my interest, and I looked at the topography maps, and looked at the low-lying area, and in visiting the site, there's a low-lying wetland, and both South Street and Brook Street are not much higher than the low-lying wetland. So the concern is the potential for flooding. And the reason I bring it up is in the Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook, for the 2 and 10-year storm events, they need to address peak rates of runoff, which they did. And in the 100-year storm, an engineer has to adjust the potential for downstream flooding. And flooding, depending on the situation, sometimes we might look at peak rates, sometimes we might look at volumes. So what I did in looking at the volume of runoff in the post-development conditions, the hydrology computations right now show about an increase of about 9% of volume during the 100-year storm, or about 1.6 acre feet. An acre foot is 1 foot of water spread out over 1 acre, that volume of water. 9% isn't necessarily concerning to me, but with the topography the way it is at the 2 culverts, I just thought it should be investigated a little bit further. If this peak and volume of runoff goes through the culvert area quicker and sooner than the overall watershed, it may not be a problem. However, if there was flooding a year or 2 or 3 years after the project was constructed, everyone's going to look up the hill and point to this project. So that's why I wanted to put it on the table now. I don't have any answers beyond that, and I trust the design team to look into it a little bit more. Moving on to page 3, number 15. The applicant's going to be donating a piece of this land to the town of Shrewsbury. And I understand the town of Shrewsbury is contemplating connecting a road from South Street to Green Street to eliminate or avoid the need of a signalized intersection at the intersection of South Street and Route 20. I just wanted to make sure the grading that's proposed on this strip of land is conducive to what the town of Shrewsbury intends to do with the land. Preliminary discussions with the applicant's team and town staff last week, that's when I learned that the road is what's being contemplated. That's also called out in the narrative submitted by the applicant. But nevertheless, I understand that the grading would in fact, it would be an area of fill that's needed to create the road, and the grading is consistent, so I've been told, with preliminary estimates of the profile of a road there. Grading would have to extend farther onto that land if the town were to construct a road, so if the town of Shrewsbury needs me to look into that in great detail, I'd be glad to. The applicant's team indicated they had a preliminary profile, which I said, thanks, but, you know, as long as everything's going in the right direction and the town's satisfied, I don't need to look at it, but if anyone needs me to take a look at it, I'd be glad to. Moving on to number 16, there's a nice pedestrian system within the two parcels. There is no sidewalk on Green Street. I would assume if there's gonna be a road from Green Street to South Street in the future, that probably would have a sidewalk on it. But nevertheless, a facility like this with new residents, there's gonna be some walkers. And the walkers are gonna wanna leave the complex. So my recommendation is to have a sidewalk along the two entrance driveways from the on-site sidewalk system currently proposed to Green Street. So that if and when something further comes along, and if and when residents are gonna go walk the neighborhood, even though Green Street's a little narrow, a little windy, you know, people are gonna walk, so at least they've got a safe walking area to Green Street. I don't think a sidewalk would be needed on the emergency access, the gated emergency access, but along the two main entrance driveways. Moving on to number 17, sightlines. I had no issue with the sightlines at the two main driveway entrance and exits. I understand the board also has a traffic peer reviewer who I'd expect would be looking at this issue as well. But nevertheless, up at the emergency exit, there's about a 6-foot tall embankment, if you will. It's roughly one vertical to one horizontal. So when they cut in the driveway there, even though it's for emergency, sight lines could be compromised. I realize there won't be residents using that on a regular basis, but nevertheless, I would say my recommendation would be strive to do the best they can with sight lines. And if at all possible, meet the typical requirements for the emergency services personnel as well, and whatever facility operation maintenance people might come and go from there. Moving on to the last page 4, the last two, number 28 and 29, these are easy. These are the, you know, just for the record, by the way, we did not review 4 comments that I want to make sure are in the record. Number 28, and we understand the Shrewsbury Department of Public Works, Water and Sewer Division will be dealing with water and sewer. In a project such as this, whether it's for a zoning board of appeals or 40As for planning board, I look for the provision of water, the provision for sanitary sewage, to be sure it's addressed. And unless we're specifically asked to opine on sewer design, water design, or even septic design, we just make sure the provision's there. And in the case of septic, that there seems to be adequate land area allocated for wastewater disposal. And number 29, likewise, we did not review for compliance with 310 CMR 10, the Massachusetts Protection Act regulations. Those regulations are state regulations. The applicant will be filing a notice of intent for this project at the state level, and certainly they have to comply with any state regulations. That's what I have, and I'd be glad to answer any questions the board may have. Thank you.
All right. Peter, you want to start?
Thank you for that, first of all. It's a lot of information to process. I don't know that I have a particular question off the top of my head, so I defer to the board.
Right, I'm just digesting a lot of
Understood.
information, and I know that I will have questions, but I don't have them right now.
Okay, and if I may offer, if the board has questions, and if you wanted to get the questions to Louise and pass them along to me, I'd be glad to answer and get responses back to you. And if necessary for me to come to another public hearing, I could make myself available to do so.
Thank you.
Knowing that you just got this,
Right.
I fully expect that. Thank you for the introduction, and that's about it.
Right. Gotcha. Tim?
Very thorough, helpful in, the 100-year analysis on the 100-year storm event. I think is important. I think there was a particular neighbor who came to last month's meeting with that very concern in mind. So I'm sure everyone's interested in hearing about that, that part of a new report.
David?
Thank you for your work and for your letter. I have a handful of things I'd like to talk about. Some of them, I mean, the majority of them are stormwater related. Let's just start with the first. You noted the sort of the overall slope for a lot of the pipes. I'm looking at number 18 in your list.
Yes.
Where there's a certain number of collection lines, and they're pitched such that their velocities are over the limit. Is that a typical thing that we encounter in hilly lots, or is this? I know you said in the beginning that there's no real kill shot to the plan, but that was one of my concerns, was that you're going to have a lot of fast-moving water during a rain event through the system.
Certainly. As engineers, we try to keep the velocities down. It can be erosive to the interior of the pipe.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always concerned about the last run of pipe and the discharge out of a pipe system to an open basin, to anything. My druthers is to get that velocity down well below 12 feet per second at that last discharge run. These were pretty much in the middle of the runs, but nevertheless, and I think they were on a steep slope. One of them might have been a discharge into a basin, but that can be easily fixed with drop manholes, whereby water comes in the pipe at a lesser slope, drops down vertically within the drain manhole, and continues on. That's why I didn't flag it as one of those that I wanted to discuss, but by all means, I want to make sure that there's enough velocity to scour any sediment. That velocity is around 3 feet per second.
Yep.
And nevertheless, don't want to have erosive velocities either within the pipe, and certainly not at the discharge points.
Right. And just I noticed at the emergency entrance, that's kind of at like the high up gradient side of the lot. There's a stormwater catchment and like a long, sort of like just hot dog shaped catch basin there, or stormwater retention. Is that a detention pond? And it seemed like it was not connected to the rest of the system. Is that typical?
That's not uncommon at all, and you're right, that's, it's catching, there's a catch basin in the road, if I remember right, it's a double inlet catch basin, two grates side by side, and the water comes over to this, it's basically a level spreader.
Yep.
The intention is to bring the water in, spread it out, let it run down the hill at a, spread out, so it's got a lot of friction against the vegetation, and that's gonna run back into the project.
Okay.
It's not gonna come out into the street.
Yep.
It's gonna run back into the project, but they use the level spreader to pass the water and try to dissipate the energy and let it be spread out on that vegetation as it runs back in.
Yeah, so it runs through green space.
That's
on the property as opposed to towards the paved surface.
That's right.
Yep,
That's right.
got it. The proposed road, or the potential new road that goes between the two properties, I know you said you just didn't, it's something you could look at further. Your main concern would be the slope. I'm glad you mentioned that, because that was on my mind is that, okay, we're gonna do this development, but then we have the secondary plan to have the road. If, you know, side one is up here and side two is down there, how do you make a road level between the two of them? I'm also concerned about how the South Street side of that road is gonna go right through the wetland and through the brook, the intermittent stream. So the design of that road, or like, how will this project influence the later design of that roadway from a water management? Is that something you're able to comment on?
I can at a much higher level.
Yep.
Not having been involved with those discussions, whereas I understand town staff has had discussions with the applicant's team. I don't have a full understanding of why the layout as we see it on the plans today was chosen. I do know that you know, the South Street Hartford Turnpike intersection is dangerous. They no longer allow left turns out, I understand. And again, I can appreciate that Mass DOT and the town of Shrewsbury DPW may be working to do whatever they plan with the intersection, whether it's only right in and right out, or close it off altogether once this other road is constructed. I can appreciate the reason for this new section of road, if you will. I agree, it is quite a bit of wetland, so it seems to be down there. I don't know if it would have to go beyond the Conservation Commission if there's more than 5,000 square feet of filling, there may be.
Yep.
But how that was chosen, I'd only be speculating why it's
Fair.
chosen. There are permitting avenues that would in theory allow it. My concern with the grading is that if the plans showed the road going this way, there's 2-to-1 side slope grading. So if for every 2 foot horizontal, there was 1 foot vertical, pretty steep. And my thinking was that if it's gonna be a water easement, a sewer easement, that only leaves, nobody can work on a 2-to-1 slope with an excavator or anything like that. Whereas it was explained to me, that area would have to be filled to create the road. If you can picture it, during the construction of the project, they'd create the 2-to-1 side slope to the middle point like this, and then later on, because they had to get up here anyways, later on, they can continue filling out. It might take a retaining wall on the other side if they stay within only the width of the road. Or if there's an easement allowed onto the section of land outside the road, they could possibly fill outside of that. But my point is, as explained to me, this grading would be in line with what they were trying to achieve with the road coming up to Green Street.
Okay, that makes sense.
For what it's worth, and as far as why the road was placed where it is, and this is just a sort of a surmise, looking at the GIS data on wetlands and also looking at the delineation in the plan, the wet area appears to narrow, and the road appears to go right across the narrowest point of the wetland. So it appears to be basically just to minimize the wetland impacts, as near as I can tell. But I don't know if the proponent has anything about that.
No, there was some initial conversations with the town as far as potential opportunities for a cross-connecting area, and to your point, the wetland really traverses the entirety of the property, and that's really the thinnest spot, and
Narrowest.
ideally the least impactful on the wetlands.
Yeah, I brought that up just as a, commentary for the board and for everyone to, for this potential new road. There might be a retaining wall involved, there might be, or there almost certainly will be a culvert involved.
Yeah.
To allow the passage of water through the road, without destroying it. From a regulatory side, I was looking at the Mass DEP, stormwater form that was submitted, and this is more of a question for the applicant. There are sampling events that occur every quarter or every annual period How at your other properties do you perform the sampling? Is it outsourced to a third party? Is it an individual in management at Pulte? Just looking for some narrative on how you guys take those measurements.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great question. So, post-construction,
Yep.
which I think is what
That's
your
what I'm
question.
talking about, once
Right.
everything's online
Okay,
and
thank you.
operational. Yep.
Yes, I just want to clarify that.
Yep.
So there's an operation and maintenance plan that was included in the submitted materials as
Okay.
part of an appendix to the stormwater report.
Yes.
And the way that is typically handled historically at other Pulte projects, and I think most other projects in general, residential projects like this, where there'll be a homeowners association, there's typically a management company that is retained to sort of oversee the management of the property, the day-to-day management. And part of their, what they're tasked with is retaining a firm to do the operation, to implement the operation and maintenance plan. So some of that is inspections of the various stormwater management features on the site. Some of it's actual maintenance, so cleaning out sediment, cleaning, pipes or structures, et cetera. And so there's companies that do that as well. So typically, the management company for the project is given the O&M plan, and then they retain the appropriate resources to implement that
Okay.
plan.
So the responsibility is on them to execute the plan that you set out.
Yes,
Yep. Okay.
that's typically how we have seen it done.
Okay. And I have one more question, which may or may not be the right content for this meeting. It was more about, I guess it could be general site plan. I remember last meeting you said you had spoken with Selco about the electric usage, and I was just thinking about that a little bit more, and you mentioned that the homes would be all electric appliances. And in your talks with Selco, you were considering, you just want to make sure you considered all of the, everybody gets home from work roughly around the same time. All of the electric cars get plugged in, and then all the heat turns on, and it's all heat pumps, and then all of the stoves turn on, not all, but, roughly 50 to 70% of them. Were those calculations looked at? Was that you came up with the peak kilowatt hours or what have you for your surge time of whatever it is, 5 to 8 p.m.?
Yep, we are working with Selco now, and Selco has asked of us a load sheet for each of the buildings for the project. So there's 6 of the garden buildings, so there's one load sheet for each of those. Is a load sheet for the clubhouse, as well as there's 2 pump stations, which are obviously critical. So one load sheet for each of those, and those would each also include the electric vehicle chargers and other associated the house requirements. There's minimal street lights, but that would also be included in those load sheets as well. So Selco has those, and we are in the process. And in our initial conversations with them, they did not express any concern, particularly from our perspective. Infrastructure can be hard to come by right now. There's been a delay, and so what one of the conversations was with Selco was their confirmation that what they feel is that will be necessary is the lead time is relevant, and we're within that, and they're comfortable with it.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I know the site's right next to Route 20, so there's a lot to tap into there.
Yep.
And I know I said that was my last one, but I have one more, and this is for Graves. I forget off the top of my head the South Street and Green Street thing confuses me all the time, because you're driving and you're driving down South Street, you cross Route 20, it turns
Yeah.
into Green Street. So it's like, which side of Route 20 is my brain thinking on? If we could just change the street names, I don't know if that would cause a riot or not, but anyway, I'm thinking about the intersection, the Green Street and Route 20, and that's sort of upgrading it, and it seems like the across or under Green Street at Route 20 is a source of runoff or that it's already captured, I guess, but it enters in through underneath on Green Street. Did you take a look at what that, is that like a reinforced concrete pipe or I think,
I'm trying to remember, yes, I did go there. Which one did I go to? I went to the,
Brook Street.
I went to South Street, next to the, I forget what it is, next to the old KFC.
okay,
Do you know where that,
I think,
there's a daycare somewhere nearby there or something like that. I wish,
yeah, no, this, the
Yep.
South Street side, that's where the.
there was a 2-foot by 2-foot culvert there, reinforced concrete. Green Street, okay, yeah. Green Street, where the brook comes onto the property, it comes from the ash landfill side of Green Street.
Yes, that's.
Yes, I went there. There's circular reinforced concrete pipe. On the downstream side, there's like a little stilling area or impoundment area, and just after that, there looks like the remnants of an old dam it still has a weir in it.
Okay.
It's shown on the plans.
Yeah.
So I did look at that. Yes, I did visit that area. I didn't have any concerns about structural integrity of either, and not that I looked at either location, but neither that Green Street culvert crossing nor the South Street culvert crossing did anything jump out at me as
Okay.
being structurally deficient. But the most important thing is to get down there and take a look through, which I did not do. I just went to the entrance and saw that there was, water was flowing in unimpeded, it seemed to be, and I left it at that.
Okay.
In the area, Mr. Walsh, where you were concerned about the 100-year event, that's on the, what is this, the east side then, the Brook Street area?
It's at the intersection of Brook Street and South Street.
And the-
It's a T intersection. South Street, to make, it's bad enough that it goes from green to south, but as you're driving along, you gotta take a right on the south to stay on south.
Right.
Or stay straight and you go on the brook. And it's at that intersection, the culvert, the box culvert is the up gradient one that I recollect seeing flooding there, and again, I didn't know the cause of it, I just had to drive through it to continue on.
Okay, but
And then immediately downstream of that by about 100 feet is a triple reinforced concrete pipes on the brook.
Okay. And the projected increase, this 9% increase, is that, I noticed that it's far from where the construction's happening, but it's a result of the clearing? Is that basically the idea?
That's it. In hydrologic design, we as engineers typically go after peak rates of runoff. That's even before stormwater management standards come into play. That's what, when I was at college, that's what we were taught to do. I like to look at volume, and I've always used a reasoning of why. Quite a few years ago, I looked at a 300 or 400 lot subdivision in a different community not too far from here. And water off about 3/4 of that came down to a fairly small pond with a small outlet with a dwelling not too far above the water surface. And the volume and this, because of the small impoundment, the small spillway, the change in volume that would have come there was substantial.
Okay.
And that's the classic example I use why do we look at volume, or why would I look at volume? If it was something on a steeper slope where an impoundment in changes in water level would be negligible, for example, a project like this next to Lake Quinsigamon, discharging into Quinsigamon
Sure.
would be essentially irrelevant. That's why I look at volume. Again, the low-lying area told me that there's not a lot of volume in the impoundment.
Yeah.
And maybe since the box culvert went in, if it's less than 20 years old, maybe the problem's been corrected. Maybe it was just blockage the day I was there.
Yeah.
DPW and possibly the residents might have some historical knowledge over the last 20 years.
Right. But it does seem noteworthy where there's homes sort of very close by to that choke point, so to speak.
Yep.
So,
There's a few homes pretty close in elevation to this area, right in the proximate area. Thank you.
Thank you. Louise, anything else to add on your end?
Not at the moment, no.
I didn't think so.
Just, I'm sorry, just one quick question.
Yes.
You had mentioned that some board members may send questions or comments to Louise. Do we get copied on that? Do we see that correspondence, or?
I can always share that.
Okay, I just want, just so
Yeah.
we have an understanding,
it'll-
kind of what the questions are, but, okay, great, thank you.
Absolutely.
I'm sure there will be more questions,
Sure, certainly.
just given the fact that we just got this. Okay, so public hearing. I'm gonna open it up to anyone that wishes to be heard. We're sticking to the topic of, stormwater and all things related to the site. Is there anyone that wishes to chat? Please. Could you state your name and address for the record, please?
Alex Vivo, 14 Appaloosa Drive. I'm on the butter to, the rear of the project. I'll just speak for, I think, some of the neighbors that aren't here. The area that I think you were referencing at the bottom of Brook, where that T intersection is a major issue. My property's 14, like I said, I'm up on the hill a bit, but anytime there's even a small rainstorm, you can hear it gushing from my kitchen if you have the windows open. So the pooling down there, I know the gentleman was here last time complaining, I think the night of the last hearing, to drive through it in a sedan would have been a problem for your car. So I do think that's something that does need to be considered. And then, to the specifics on like the cut-through road, I said it last time, it is like a racetrack through our neighborhood right now between the people coming out of the Alhambra school because they can't take lefts out of that street. So it's very dangerous, as he pointed out, like, people have to take a right to stay on South Street, and there will people that will veer off on the left to Brook Street. And it's very dangerous. So I do think the
Please, when
road.
do we handle the traffic? Is that
Traffic is next,
End of
next
February.
meeting?
right,
Yep.
but I don't know that the connector, if that's what are you talking about the
No.
Well, I guess
roadway?
that's my point. Like, the donation of land is great and all, but
Yeah.
if the town has no intent to actually put a road in,
Right.
then what does the donation mean to any of us? And all it's gonna mean is more traffic up our street. I mean, I think all of us have invested a lot of money in properties that, we already thought were gonna be protected by wetlands and conservation and other issues. And now, to be honest, we're having 4-story townhouse buildings built in our backyard.
Right.
And on top of, that, I have 2 young children and a third on the way, and, it's dangerous enough with the way people are speeding up that street, and it doesn't seem like it's ever being enforced. So, I know the discussion was about stormwater, but if it's not feasible to put in a road, that's gonna be a problem for, I think, a lot of people in my neighborhood.
I am guessing you're going to be at the next meeting, and I would highly recommend that we talk about that.
Yeah, just more of I guess, a question too. I mean, like, when are we gonna have the opportunity to comment more on just the design itself? Like, to me, like, one of the things.
Architecturally?
Architecturally, yeah.
That's, architectural review is, give me a second.
Each meeting has kind of a
Yeah.
theme.
No, I understand.
Yeah, right.
2 meetings from now?
I think so.
Architectural is, I believe, our second to the last meeting,
Is that March?
March.
Yeah.
Yeah, so traffic's next, and then architecture is after that.
Yeah. I will be very curious to see what the traffic findings are, because that Green Street exit, if everyone's gonna get funneled through there, will be a disaster, but I'll save those comments for then. I was just more commenting on the road because of the grading discussion.
Yep.
If a road doesn't go in there, that's gonna be an issue, and like I said, the stormwater, I feel like 100-year study, I'm not an engineer, but it seems like it's a big problem down there, and I'm sure my neighbors would attest to it. It's quite a bit of regular flooding, so. That's all I have, but thank you.
Yes, thank you. Anyone else that wishes to be heard? Yes, sir, please.
Thank you all very much. I live
Can
on
we get your name and address, please?
Ming Shan, 12 Appaloosa Drive. So if you look at the map, I'm the fourth house from on the Appaloosa Drive there. Just follow the comments about the flooding. I lived there since 2011, I can vividly remember a few years ago, I came out, particularly that intersection there, and literally the water was just so high. Actually, I went for lunch, for dinner, come back, because I couldn't start my car simply because I have drove through really probably a foot deep of waters there. So and also
On Brook Street?
Exactly, that intersection there. But even that was a couple months ago. I have an electric car I drove by there, and similar in the morning I couldn't barely see it because. And suddenly I realized I kind of drove through really, I could have potentially damaged the vehicle there just in the morning because it's so dark. I go to the gym. So that's kind of also on that particular situation a few years ago, I came back, I drove it that way. I thought maybe that would help. But if you all realize on the South Street on the other side, there, after the hill there's also a similar situation there. So I couldn't barely get home. So just that comment there. So now with this new construction, I'm wondering how much wetland is going to be removed, and it really would causing more floodings. 9%. I'm not an engineer, but I think for 100 years, given my personal experience, my speculation is going to be way higher than the 9% there. But, forgive me if I kind of just speculate.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Good evening. Could you state your name and address?
Yeah, Joyce Smith, 20 Appaloosa Drive, and I'm going to try to keep it strictly to water. I agree with Ming. We've been there going on 13 years. We were the first house to be built. There has always been a stream in our backyard, always. And if you look up the hill from our house, you can see the hill high up, and I know this isn't their property way up, but that hill comes down into our properties. And when Brendan built them, all the houses, or most of them, have built up soil around them. So we have a good maybe 5 or 6 feet with walkout basements. And then you look maybe 100 feet in, and that stream has been there forever. And now with the high water, I laugh, I say, we have white water. You can hear it, as Ming said. It's climate. It's due to the climate, and I don't think this is going to get better. And I don't know if our water people have an answer to this, but that water's got to go someplace. And if it gets stuck up at our end, what do? They're sitting there, or does it go down into your buildings? I just don't think there's a really good answer, unless you have one. So I'll save my other comments for another day on other episodes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? All right. Yes, sir. Please step forward.
Sorry if I'm, hopefully I stay on topic here. There's one thing is, since I moved into this building, I've been working from home all this time. And when I purchased the home, I kind of pictured where my office is. So now my office facing to the west. So every day, I'm working, I'm looking at outside. Now just picture there's 3 or 4 floor buildings, right? Really close to my, if you look at the plot, it's almost like probably from my end, maybe one more there. It's going to be a building, huge building there. But my question to the town is that, to what degree, can be protected in terms of in the regular homeowners, in terms of the perception. I understand down the South Street there are other buildings or building. But this seems to me is kind of more to the normal situation versus this is I have never heard in my so many years. But thank you.
Thank you, and I think that will be covered at the site review meeting, which is end of March. Not site review, architectural review.
Architectural review, right.
Okay, anyone else? Name and address, please.
Alex Chan, 22 Appaloosa Drive, so neighbors. Just to reiterate what they said before, I'm near the top of the hill, so I still hear a lot of like the same problem, like the water coming up, and I'm at the top. So I can only imagine what my neighbors at the bottom must be experiencing. So yeah, I that is another concern for my neighbors, that they don't drown when concrete comes by. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi.
Hello.
Greg Smith, 20 Appaloosa Drive. I just had one comment, and that's the stream that runs behind our house and comes all the way down. Is it possible that could be included in the study of the water? Because it is affected, and if that flow increases dramatically, it's going to have a significant effect on our houses.
Jeff, did you take that into consideration?
I did, with respect to the evaluation points that the applicant needed, his engineer needed to look at. And the basically, we look at discharges. In theory, it's to a wetland resource area, and they have to make their analysis at the wetland resource areas. The development is proposed in such a way that the analysis point is downstream from the two different sections of the project. Each one's handled separately, but yet they come together to the same stream. So in theory and in practice, what's happening is the analysis point that was looked at is looking at water coming into the stream. And these are hydrology calculations that are looking at surface water flow, how much rainfall became runoff. And the numbers I was able to share with you earlier is for me gleaning surface water runoff. So in essence, that was looked at by way of the peak rates of runoff and the volumes of runoff in the analysis.
Our little stream. I know when the house was built by Brendan Holmes, he really did a tremendous job putting in lots of retention areas and areas that water could flow to, because he was concerned about those issues. And that's, we still have some little bit of water issue, and we're just concerned that this may really exaggerate the problem. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
If I could
Thank you.
make a comment on that. I'm just looking at the state geographic information system. So the Department of Environmental Protection does aerial surveys of wet areas, and it's all mapped online. You can see it. And the stream that you are all describing, the intermittent stream, does show up on the system. And it does appear to be close enough to the area where construction is going to happen that would be part of the review of the order of conditions in all likelihood by Mass DEP. So can't guarantee anything, obviously, but my thought would be, looking at the map, it probably would factor into the analysis. So
There's no name to that stream, is there?
there's not actually. Well, it's a tributary to Bummett Brook, so it's not named, but it's famous by association. So.
Anyone else? Sir?
Sorry. Alex, Navigo, 14 Appaloosa. I just have a question that just kind of jogged me. Has there been any consideration, like, is it the wetlands or stormwater that, has driven where the site plan has to be? Because it just seems like it could be much closer, to Ming's point, to Route 20, unless there's a reason otherwise. And that's sort of what I was getting at, is it's like, why does it have to abut, this area where this stream is and where, it's protected? Is there a reason, stormwater related, why it has to be where it is?
Essex, are you in a position to?
Certainly can answer that. I mean, so the design absolutely takes into account the wetland areas, and specifically, one of the charges of the design is to minimize any impact to wetland areas. The large majority of the project, any disturbances on the upland area, really minimizes any impact to a wetland area.
And there were other areas contemplated, I'm assuming?
Within this site, this was, yes, the use of this upland area was the primary driver for the location of those buildings.
Yep. So I guess as a result of that, how much land is going to be taken out? Are you going to be basically building on the topography as is, or, is there going to be removal that has to occur?
Do you want to take that one?
Sure,
please?
if I may?
Yes, please, please.
Thank you. So there will be earthwork involved, a project like this, but the way the site is proposed to be graded out and the way the proposed buildings have been situated on the site is to work as much as possible with the existing topography. So the buildings, step down in a certain fashion architecturally, we can get it to work a certain way, and we've oriented them to work that way. So, the layout very much works with the topography. There's a lot of topography out there.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah. And so it very much works with that topography, but there will nonetheless be earthwork involved to build a project like
Yeah,
this.
I'm very familiar with, where that runs off and down to and the low points, and that's why I'm asking, because as everyone's kind of echoed, it's a problem now, and you can manage it as well as you think, but I'm sure Brendan probably thought he was managing it great, and the people at that end of that street, that poor guy has complained about his yard, and like I said, it's a swamp, for lack of a better term, but, okay, thank you.
I would suggest to folks in the neighborhood, if you look at attachment A1, the preliminary site development plans, it looks like it's at page 4. There's just a really helpful map of the site, and there's a sort of polka dotted pattern that represents the wetland areas, and you can really see that the development was sort of specifically placed to avoid those polka dotted areas. So it does appear to have a relatively intentional, minimalized impact on the wetland piece as much as possible. So, but the image really sort of drives it home why things are where they are.
Okay, any other comments?
Just one suggestion that's not I think you should have maps up. It would be so much easier to see.
That's a good point.
And I was going to hold
That's
my
a good
laptop
point.
up and realized that would be pointless.
We have maps, we got conservation, and
Yep.
it makes such a big difference
Sure.
to know what's going on.
Okay, we appreciate that feedback. We'll
Fair.
make sure to adhere to that for the next meeting.
Future meetings, or traffic for everything.
Yeah,
There's nothing here for us to look at.
Right, right. No, certainly that is a very good point, and we'll make sure to cover that for next meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So we are going to adjourn for this evening, and we will be back in 30 days with the topic at hand of traffic. Traffic, one of our favorite topics.
Yes.
So I would encourage neighbors, friends, people that care to come attend the meeting. And certainly you do not have to wait for meetings. If you have questions or comments, our building department is obviously actively working on this, so I'd encourage you to take an active part in that. Before we close the meeting, we do have just a quick update. Given the fact that 40Bs, are here to stay, and there just is so many components to the 40B process, there's been a training scheduled and this is open to the public, and we would encourage board members to attend as well. It will be February 22nd at 6:30. And have we established where it's going to be?
Right here.
Here? Okay. So it's going to be here. Louise, do you want to just talk a little bit about what we'll cover and sort of anything, how long of a meeting will it be? Who will be in attendance?
I don't know, do you want to take that, Paul?
Sure.
Okay.
If you can hear me enough. So there will be a sort of a general overview of the process of how Chapter 40B works, what the board's role is in that process. The length really depends on the sort of feedback. I can run through this presentation in 15 or 20 minutes, or it can take an hour, depending upon the number of questions that I receive. It's always very helpful to get questions and get that sort of feedback. So I absolutely encourage people to show up, ask questions, and try to get a better sense as to how the process works. Otherwise, it gets pretty dry, just a PowerPoint presentation, 15 minutes, and you'll be all done.
Can you give our audience how you're related to the 40B process?
Certainly. So I am here as the technical review consultant through the Mass Housing Partnerships Technical Review Program. So what I do is I act as a facilitator I am an attorney with Blattman, Bobrowski, Haverty, and Silverstein out of Concord, Massachusetts. I have been working in the Chapter 40B field for 20 years now. I've got a tremendous amount of experience. I've represented both developers and boards of appeals in this process. As a MHP technical review consultant, I've probably done 30 to 40 of these developments, including.
You've done ones
the
in
Point
Shrewsbury.
here
Yep.
in Shrewsbury, and then there was a second one that
Chestnut
started
Street.
off, and then the applicant wound up withdrawing. So I have a significant amount of experience doing Chapter 40B developments. So I'm just, I'm here to help the board work its way through the process, answer any questions that it may have.
Great. And the public as well.
Yes.
So I would put that on your calendar, February 22nd, 6:30 here. And it's a public meeting, so there's not a formality to it. It's a little less formal. So we would welcome everyone to attend that.
And Madam Chair, before you close for the night, I did have a couple of questions, comments. First of all, I guess I'm looking to the applicant to find out, has the project eligibility letter for this project issued?
Yes,
And has that been submitted into the record?
yes.
Okay, because I didn't see it on the website.
I think it's within like a big document. They submitted multiple documents, like hundreds of pages.
Well, I saw the original application said that the PEL would be submitted once it's issued.
I'll
And it
double
had the copy of the application. I
But-
didn't see the PEL itself.
Yeah.
So that's just something we want to make sure we've got in the record before we complete the hearing
Yep,
process.
and that's definitely been submitted.
Yep, okay, great.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, I did review the list of requested waivers, and in many instances, the applicant is requesting blanket waivers of local rules and requirements. I generally recommend that a board does not grant blanket waivers, that it in fact requests the applicant to specify which specific substantive provisions of the local rules in requirements it's looking to waive and exactly what it's proposing to do instead. And the reason for that is to protect both the board and the applicant as it relates to potential appeals, because one way in which a board's decision could be challenged, on an appeal is to argue that it's arbitrary and capricious. And there really is no better way to prove that a board's decision is arbitrary and capricious if it is granting waivers that it doesn't even know the extent of what exactly is being waived. So that's why I always recommend boards to actually get a specific list of requested waivers so that it knows exactly what it's granting when it comes down to the end of the process.
Ms. O'Neill, we can work on that.
Yep, we
Yep.
can work with the
Along with-
applicant.
Point taken and heard, absolutely.
Ms. Kiefer knows, we've been through this.
Yes, and it just, I have with Paul in the past, the waiver list is somewhat iterative as the process goes on, so as we get towards the end of the process, we will be submitting an updated, that reflects any changes that may have occurred, and then also can provide that specificity that's been requested.
And the waiver lists frequently, they come in more broad and they get refined as you go through the process. And there's frequently procedural waivers that are included, and there are in this waiver list as well. And what I generally, suggested the board to do is, in its decision, to deny the procedural waivers as unnecessary. Because Chapter 40B, like, for instance, there's a waiver in there requesting waivers from subdivision rules and regulations. Chapter 40B regulations specifically state you do not need to request a waiver of subdivision rules and regulations unless you're proposing a subdivision. So that waiver is procedurally unnecessary, but it is helpful to leave that in the waiver list and denote in your decision that the board is denying the waiver as unnecessary. This way, when at post-permit, when building commissioner or, somebody else is reviewing the decision, they can look at that and say, okay, it's, this was requested, it was denied as unnecessary, but that also means they don't need to comply with the subdivision rules and regulations. Special permit, same thing. An applicant is not required to request waivers of special permit requirements. They're not applicable to a 40B application.
Fair. That's really good. We'll have our chief counsel make sure that we handle that waiver the right way. Sounds complicated. Okay, anything else that we think we've covered, everything that needs to be covered? Okay. Great, can I get a motion to close the hearing, please?
Do we close the hearing or leave it?
Or not close the hearing? I'm
Continue
sorry.
it? We don't close it, we
Continue the
continue it.
hearing, and now we're gonna close the meeting. Motion to continue, please.
What's the date of the next meeting?
It is February 26th.
26. I move to continue the hearing to February 26th at 6:30 PM.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Great. Motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. So moved.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.